and welcome to Crafts with Ash. My name's Ashley and today I'm going to bring you 4 awesome ideas for farmhouse home signs. I just feel like after Christmas or after Valentine's Day, you kind of want to bring in some spring, but also mix in some neutral decor. So I came up with these awesome ideas that I thought would fit into any household. Also, you'll definitely want to stick around to the end because I'm going to show you an idea that I came up with last year that's interchangeable and you can use all year round. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that little notification bell. That way you can be notified anytime I upload a new video. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up so it helps my channel to grow. Then hop on over to Facebook and Instagram and follow me there. We have a great crafting community and I'd love to have you join. So let's get started. For this first home sign, I used this big tag from Valentine's Day from the Dollar Tree, and I actually used the back of it. So I went ahead and plucked off the bow on the front to make it a flat surface on the back, and then I cut off the tag. Next, I went ahead and gave it a good coat of Waverly chalk paint in white. Now, I wasn't going for full coverage here. As you'll see, I'm leaving some spots unpainted, and that's because it's gonna have that rustic look. After my white paint was dry, I took my Waverly antique wax and I shook a little in the lid, then took my favorite distressing brush, and I'll show you it in a minute, and it comes from the Dollar Tree. There it is right there, and you can tell that it's been used lots of times. And I just dipped it in the lid, dabbed it off on a paper towel, and then just lightly dry brushed over my sign. And this is to kind of give it the faux wood look, and like I said, we're gonna make this look really farmhouse rustic. Next, I took this straight edge, and it's actually a sign from the Dollar Tree, and we will be using it in another DIY. But I just used it as a ruler of sorts and just drew lines down my sign. So I started in the middle, drew a line down, and then went on either side and drew another line down, and this is going to give it the shiplap look. Then to blend it all together, I took my sanding block and I gave it a good sanding. Now I didn't want to sand it too much because I didn't want to sand the paint off, but I just went ahead and sanded it a little bit. And then I went over and just lightly brushed the antique wax over the top just to finish it off. Now, when I started this, I really had no idea what I was doing. I kind of had a vision in my head, but I kind of just went for it. So you're going to see me kind of trying to make decisions and figure out what I'm doing. But the first thing I did is take this burlap ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I measured a piece to go around the top, but I actually ended up using it at the bottom. Then I cut off the edges and pulled the string off of each side so it will fray. Now you can see that I laid it right there on top, but I'm not actually going to put it there. So what I did was I took another piece and measured it for the bottom and did the same thing. Then you're going to see me hot glue that piece down to the bottom and hot glue that piece that's sitting up at the top right above it to make it just a little thicker at the bottom. So just bear with me because even as I'm doing this, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. So you're kind of watching me figure it out live. So there you go. And hopefully visually you'll understand a little bit more than me trying to explain it. But also I wanted to show you this awesome tool, and I see a lot of crafters using it, and I finally found one at my Dollar Tree and I got so excited. It's a mask applicator. It's actually a makeup tool, and it is perfect for things like this where you're using burlap that you could burn yourself, because look how nicely that rubs on. Oh my gosh, I just love it. So I went ahead and hot glued that first piece of ribbon down. Then I went ahead and hot glued that second piece of ribbon down. And while you're at it, you might as well just cut off a third piece, because I did go back and add another piece, but that's not till a little bit later. But I just wanted to kind of just give you a heads up. So after I got those bottom 2 pieces of ribbon down, I went ahead and took these 2-inch stencils that I got from Amazon, and I love these stencils. I used them for the first time the other day, or before I did this, and I just loved them. And they come with its own stencil brush, and it is so nice, and it's because it's the width of what the letters are, so it rubs on so nicely. So in this one, I pulled out the H, the M, and the E, and then just by using acrylic paint, I went ahead and brushed it on. Now I did go ahead and stack the letters, so I did H space, you're gonna see me put an O, but I didn't use the letter O, but H-O and then M-E at the bottom. I just thought that that would look really, really cute. Look how nicely these came out. Just such clean lines and so crisp. I absolutely love these stencils. I'll go ahead and link it to the bottom in the description box because they were very inexpensive too. And you get all of the letters, all of the numbers, and I think some punctuation, plus 2 of those brushes. So it was a great deal. After I got all my letters down, I went ahead and got that burlap ribbon again, and I did the same thing. I cut off a piece to fit at the top, right above the H this time, and then I cut off the edges and frayed them. Then I went ahead and hot glued it right on top. Now I felt like that looked good, but I wanted to add just a little bit more up top. So I just basically repeated the same process. I cut off a piece to go on top of that original ribbon and then frayed the edges and hot glued it down. Now to make the O for my board, I took this vine garland that I got from Hobby Lobby in the party section, and I cut off a little bit to make it in the shape of an O. Now you can see that it's naturally in a round shape, but I just cut off a little bit, and then I twisted it within itself. So I didn't really have to hot glue it to each other, hot glue it down. I did have to hot glue it to the board, but I just twisted it within itself. Then I went ahead and set it down to make sure that it was the same size as the other letters. Now before I hot glued that down, I just couldn't stop looking at the bottom. It just needed something. So I took this burlap white polka dot ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree, just so I could hide the seam where the 2 burlap ribbons underneath met. So I went ahead and hot glued that down. Now, as you can see, I put a bunch of hot glue and it showed through. You do not need a ton of hot glue for this burlap ribbon. Just a little bit just to tack it down, and that is good enough. You do not need a lot. Now I loved how that looked, so I went ahead and did the same thing on the top to hide the seam of where the 2 ribbons met. Alright, so now that I got the top and the bottom done for now, I went ahead and I put that vine garland back on to the sign, and I went ahead and made a finger bow, just like a little simple bow, shoelace bow with some twine. And then by using some hot glue, I tacked the vine down on the sign and then put the bow right on top. felt that the letters were just a little too bold and too black, so I went ahead and sanded them down. I kind of wish I hadn't done that. I think I liked it a little bit bolder better, but I still think it turned out great. Alright, so at this point I really love how it's looking, but the big space underneath the M and the E was really bugging me. So of course, I took one more piece of ribbon, and this is why I said at the beginning, you might as well just cut 3, because that's what I used. And I went ahead and did the same thing. I frayed the edges and then hot glued that down. Then I added another piece of the polka dot ribbon right on top of that. So then to hide the seam at the bottom where the 2 polka dot ribbons met, I took my twine and starting from the back, I hot glued it down and then just wrapped it around and around and around until I got it the thickness that I liked. So, and then I just cut it off and hot glued the end down on the back. Now, I was afraid that all of this twine was going to be really thick, so I wanted to tack it down somehow, and at first I started with a craft stick, and that made it thicker. I don't know what I was thinking. So then I just cut off a little piece of that brown paper that you can see that I'm working on, and I just hot glued that down. I just felt like that would help keep it all together. To complete my sign, I needed to create a hanger. So I just took another piece of twine and I looped it and knotted it at the bottom. And then I took 3 wooden beads and strung them through. And then I hot glued the knot to the hole up top, but through the hole, if that makes sense. Hopefully by watching you'll understand what I'm doing. So I didn't tie the twine through the hole. I hot glued it to the back, but going through the front. Now I did realize that it was really easy for the beads to fall off, so I just put some hot glue on the top of the top bead. That way it kept them all down. And that was it. I have to say, for not knowing where I was going with this, I think that this turned out so cute. It is a very simple yet very dimensional. It has so many different layers to it and fabrics and just different parts that I think this sign is great. What do you think? For my next DIY, I used this sign from the Dollar Tree, and it actually came with 2 on it, but I used the other one in a prior DIY. So what I needed to do was take the staples that was left in this one, and they were pretty deep in there. So I really had to use some different tools to dig them out. I ended up using my scraper to get underneath it and then just literally pry them out. I did not have my needle nose pliers nearby, so this is just what I had to use. Then after I finally got the staples out, I took my sanding block and sanded the sign to give me a nice smooth finish. After I cleaned off my sign, I took my Waverly chalk paint in white and a chipping brush, and I just gave it a very messy coat of that. Now, I was not going for full coverage on this one either, and you're going to see a theme here with all of these projects. Not only are they all home signs, but they're all kind of rustic and chippy looking, just like this. So once I had my sign all painted, I took that distressing brush again, and then I started off with black acrylic paint, but you're going to see me jump to Waverly Antique Wax because after I got the black on, I just really didn't like it. I just didn't love where it was going. But the Waverly Antique Wax, I think, just makes it look so much more rustic, and I think that's the look that I love even more. So here I'm going to jump right over to that, and I think I'm going to stick to that from now on. But just by using a combination of the white Waverly chalk paint and the antique wax, I went ahead and just distressed the top of my board. Then I sanded it just a little bit to make all the paints blend together. The next thing I did was take this roll of burlap that I got from Walmart for $5, and I cut a piece that was just smaller than the board itself all around. So I made sure it was shorter than the board and the width was not as big. So it's going to fit right in the middle of the board. Then again, I pulled out the strings on the sides and I frayed the edges. Now before I glued this down, I laid it where I wanted it, and then I took these black block letters from the Dollar Tree and I got myself an H, an M, and an E and laid them out. But I did not push them down hard at all. I just kind of laid them. Then I took that vine garland again and made myself an O and laid that down. Once I was sure that everything was going to fit on that burlap, I went ahead and removed it all, and then I hot glued the burlap down to the middle of my board. Now remember, you don't need a ton of burlap, you just need little dots, and then I used my tool to push it down. Then I went ahead and replaced all of my letters in that O. Now I started with the M and the garland first because they broke center, so I put them in the middle and then worked my way out, and then I pushed really hard on the letters so they didn't flap up, and then I hot glued the vine garland down. Now you could Mod Podge the letters down. I just didn't because I just didn't feel it necessary, but you absolutely could. Then to complete my O, I just made myself a simple bow with twine and hot glued that down to the top of my garland. Then to complete my little sign, I decided it just needed one more thing. So I took these silver tacks that I got from the Dollar Tree and I put them in the corner of the burlap. Now, at first I tried to push them into this sign and I didn't have a hammer. I feel like if I had a hammer, it probably would have been easier. I could just pounded them in. But it just didn't work, and then the one bent. So instead of trying to fight it, I took my wire cutters. You can see I even used my wire cutters to try to bang it in there, and it just didn't work. So I just finally took my wire cutters and I just cut off the pointy part of the tack, and then I just hot glued them all down, and this worked out great. Now when you cut the little points off of these, just be careful because when I did this, it literally shot across the room. So it wasn't until the last one that I figured out to put my hand over it. That way it could grab anything that like shot out, but it really worked. I mean, you just needed a little bit of muscle and these bad boys came right apart. So here's a tip for when you hot glue these down. Definitely put the hot glue on the burlap and don't try to put the hot glue on the tack like I did here. And yes, I just burnt myself. So that's exactly why you want to put the hot glue on the burlap like I'm doing right here, and then put the tack on top of it. Then after I got all the tacks glued down, I went ahead and took some black acrylic paint and a really small brush, and I just painted each one of them. That way it correlated with the letters on my sign. Okay, so I need your opinions here. I stopped right here after I was done painting these tacks. I didn't put a hanger on this and I didn't make a stand because I couldn't decide whether I wanted this to hang or stand. Now I did think that this could make a really cute shelf sitter, so I just thought propping it up would be perfect too. But leave me a comment down below and tell me what you would have done. But either way, I think this came out so cute and it's definitely my favorite piece. What do you think? Okay, so for this last DIY, I'm actually using a sign that I made on my Facebook Live, which is exactly why you should like and follow that page because we do lots of fun stuff. And I'm going to reverse it, and this is going to become a reversible sign. Now, to see how I made this love sign, you're going to have to check it out on my Facebook page. So to start it off, they were all connected by wooden beads, so I just went ahead and took it apart to make it easier to work with. Then I took off all these little flowers, and I did save them. I put them off to the side because you never know when you're going to need them. Now some of them had wires through them, so I took my wire cutters and basically just pulled them out. Then I took my sanding block and just sanded the bottoms of it to make it really smooth. Then after that, I gave each one of these several coats of Waverly chalk paint in white to cover up all those colors. After I got the majority of it painted, I went ahead and took a smaller brush to the corners that I couldn't really get with my foam brush. I just made any touch-ups necessary to make sure that each one of these little signs were fully covered. After all that paint was dry, I took my Waverly Antique Wax again and my favorite distressing brush, and I went ahead and distressed the outer edges, the top, and the inside of each of the boxes. Now, when you're distressing, you want to make sure that you go in the same direction. That way it gives it that faux wood look. I did this to all 4 boxes. Then to blend all my paints together, I lightly sanded the inside and around the outside of the box. Now you don't want to sand too hard because you don't want to bring up those bright colors that's underneath. After you have your sanding done, you're gonna lay all your letters out. Now, if you haven't done this love part, it doesn't matter how you stack all your letters, but because I had to follow the pattern of the letters that are on the back, I had to lay them all out so they would match up. Then I'm going to take those stencils again, and I'm going to get the H, the M, and the E and stencil them down with black acrylic paint using that brush that came with the stencil. To make sure that all my letters lined up, I went ahead and put them next to each other. That way I can judge it and make sure that they matched. Then to make my O, you guessed it, I took that vine garland and I cut off a strand. That way I can form an O. Now I did match it to the H to make sure that it was the same size as those letters, and then I wrapped it within itself again and then tacked it down. Then to complete that, I made myself another twine simple bow and hot glued that right on top. So as I said, all of these signs, they all follow the same pattern and theme, but I wanted to make each of them different. So the first one was a hanging sign, the second one could hang or stand or lean, then this one is definitely a standing sign. So it's up to you which one you want to do. The next thing I did was take wooden beads and I just connected all of these little signs with wooden beads. Now the trick here is that you need a ton of hot glue. In fact, I would actually recommend some E6000 or some super glue. I just didn't have any, but that way it gives it a permanent hold. And then another tip is that when you go to match them up, you want to stand them up how they're actually going to be standing to make sure they're flush to the bottom. But you're just going to put together the middle one, so the H, the O, the M, and the E. So you're going to have 3 different beads and you're just going to connect them. Then on the ends, and I apologize, I didn't show this because they were already connected and I kind of forgot, but I just went ahead and put a tie there to make it look like it was all connected. So I just took some nautical rope, I tied a knot, and then I hot glued the knot to the end of the H and the E. You'll see a better picture of it at the end, but that's just basically what I'm doing. And then back to the wooden beads. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but back to the wooden beads. You want to hold it for several minutes like I am. I mean, you really want to hold it down and make sure that they're stuck together. This sign is the perfect sign for like an entryway or a knee wall, like a long dresser or cabinet or something. And it's perfect because it can be reversed. So you can put this up right after Christmas and then you can reverse it for Valentine's Day and then switch it back for the rest of the year. And if you wanted, you could even remove that garland and replace it with seasonal things. So you could put a pumpkin in it, you could put an egg, you could put a Christmas tree, whatever you want. I absolutely love this piece and I love that it's dual purpose. What do you think? Okay, so this is a little bonus DIY. I actually made this last year and it was my first ever Facebook Live, so it was very intimidating, but it was a lot of fun. And this is a really cool way on how you can use this all year round. I'm going to insert the clip that I recorded last year, so you're going to hear me talking. And I'll also have the video where I made some dice similar to this in the description box below. Enjoy these. These were one of my most popular DIYs from last year. The second set right over here. You can see how it now says home instead of snow, but this is the coolest thing. So you can have this out all year round. What I did was I took a piece of Velcro and I put a piece of Velcro on the, would be the O, and on the back of the accessories. And then now I can switch it up. So now I have a heart, and this is just from the Dollar Tree. It's from those stickers. And now I have a heart that you can use for Valentine's Day, or you can keep them on here. You can even stack them just like that. So you can kind of just decide how you want to use it. And then I also I had this flower already. I have no idea where it came from, but I thought that that would be cute for spring or for summer. Okay. Then I had these left over from fall. And of course I'll have to wait until the Dollar Tree has something that, like an Easter egg or a bunny or something for Easter. So there's a pumpkin for fall. And these are just those wooden stickers. And then I have this Christmas tree that was left over, and these came in those wooden stickers as well. So I made these because I'm like, oh, this will be really cute and fun. I could switch it out depending on the season. Then when it's just kind of like a downtime or whatever and there is no holiday, I made this little wreath. So now you can have a home sign just like that. So if you don't want to switch it out, just put a generic wreath on there. And what this was, I literally cut this off a garland that I had left over and then just made a bow. It's not perfect. You could see hot glue everywhere on it, but this was just to give you an example of something you can do. So I just kind of thought that this was really super cute, and you know, you can use it. So I had all these little accessories. See, there's my snowflake, the pumpkin, the heart, the flower, and then the Christmas tree. Just like that. See? So I just kind of wanted to jump on and show you how you can kind of switch it up. Wasn't that idea so neat? Like I said, I will have the video on how I made some dice similar to that linked at the end of this video. That way you can create your own. But I hope you enjoyed these DIYs that you can hang in your home all year round. I just felt like these were fresh and crisp and clean, and they would fit any decor style. You're gonna have to let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. Also, don't forget to give me your feedback on that second one. Would you add a hanger on it, or would you put a stand on it? Or would you frame it out with some wood or tumbling tower blocks? I also thought of that too, but I just couldn't decide. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it gave you some great inspiration for your next DIY project. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up to help me grow my page. Also, jump over to Facebook and Instagram and follow me there and join my crafting community. All right, well, until we craft again, I'll see you soon. Bye!